If you've ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained, confused, or questioning your own sanity, don't click away. Because what you're about to hear may completely change how you see people forever. Most of what you've been taught about dealing with toxic people is not just wrong, it's dangerous. You were told to communicate more, explain better, stay calm, and be understanding. But no one warned you that some people are not looking for understanding at all. They're looking for control. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The moment you try to defend yourself to the wrong person, you've already lost. The moment you react emotionally, you hand them power. And the moment you believe that fixing them will fix the situation, you trap yourself in a cycle that never ends. This video is not about being nicer. It's not about winning arguments. It's about reclaiming your mind. By the end of this, you will understand why smart people don't confront toxic individuals, why silence unsettles them more than anger, and why walking away without explanation is sometimes the strongest move you can make. You'll see how attention is used as a weapon, how emotional reactions are harvested, and why your peace has been costing you more than you realize. If you stay until the end, you won't just learn how to deal with toxic people. You'll understand how to become unreachable to them. You'll recognize the moment someone is trying to pull you into chaos, and instead of reacting, you'll feel something unfamiliar: control, calm, clarity. Most people never learn this because it requires giving up the need to be understood. But once you do, everything changes. Stay with me. Because this might be the last time you ever let someone drain your power. Let's slow this down, because this is where most people lose their power without even realizing it. When smart people choose not to react, it's not because they are passive, weak, or afraid. It's because they understand the mechanics of human behavior at a deeper level. They see what others miss. Toxic people are not driven by logic, facts, or even outcomes. They are driven by stimulation. Reaction is their currency. Emotion is their reward. The moment you react, defending yourself, raising your voice, explaining your intentions, you've already paid the price. Most people think reacting is standing up for themselves. But smart people know that reacting is often surrendering control. When someone provokes you and you respond emotionally, you are no longer leading the interaction. You are being led. Your nervous system has been hijacked, and now the conversation belongs to whoever pulled the trigger first. That's why smart people pause. That pause isn't silence born from confusion. It's silence born from awareness. They understand a simple psychological truth. The person who controls the emotional temperature of the interaction controls the outcome. Toxic people want heat. They want intensity. They want escalation. Smart people respond with something far more unsettling. Calm. Calm disrupts the pattern. Calm denies the payoff. Calm forces the other person to sit alone with their own behavior. And here's where it gets uncomfortable. When you don't react, toxic people often escalate. They push harder. They insult deeper. They provoke louder. This is the moment most people crack. But smart people expect this phase. They recognize it as extinction behavior. The same principle psychologists observe when a stimulus no longer produces the desired response. The behavior gets worse before it disappears. Smart people don't take this escalation as proof they should engage. They take it as confirmation they're doing the right thing. This is not emotional suppression. It's emotional discipline. Smart people still feel the irritation, the anger, the injustice. They just refuse to let those feelings decide their behavior. They don't confuse emotion with instruction. Feeling upset doesn't mean you must act upset. Feeling attacked doesn't mean you must counterattack. That distinction alone separates the reactive from the intelligent. Notice something else. Smart people don't rush to clarify themselves to people who have already decided to misunderstand them. They know that explanation only works when there is goodwill on both sides. Without goodwill, explanation becomes negotiation with someone who benefits from confusion. So they stop over-explaining. They answer only what is necessary. They say less, not more. And in doing so, they reclaim authority over their own energy. There's also a philosophical layer here that most people never consider. When you react impulsively, you are allowing someone else to determine your internal state. That is a quiet form of dependence. Smart people value autonomy too much to hand that power away. They understand that freedom is not just about external choices, but internal sovereignty. If someone can control your mood, they can control your decisions. Smart people refuse that trade. This is why they don't argue with people committed to chaos. They don't try to win debates with people who change rules mid-conversation. They don't engage with manipulation disguised as concern or criticism masked as honesty. They listen carefully, they observe patterns, and then they disengage without theatrics. Not because they don't have a response, but because they have a future to protect. And here's the part that truly shocks people. Smart individuals understand that silence is not absence. Silence is information. It communicates boundaries without speeches. It signals self-respect without hostility. It says, I see what this is and I'm not participating. For toxic people, that message is deeply unsettling because it removes their sense of influence. When you stop reacting, you also stop feeding narratives about who you are. Toxic people often want to define you through conflict. The angry one, the defensive one, the unstable one. Smart people deny them that story. They let their consistency speak instead. Over time, people notice who remains composed and who keeps escalating. Truth has a way of surfacing without your help. This doesn't mean smart people tolerate disrespect indefinitely. It means they choose their exits carefully. They gather data. They watch how someone responds to calm, to limits, to silence. And when the pattern is clear, they don't argue about it, they act on it. Distance becomes the consequence, not confrontation. So if you take nothing else from this, take this with you. Every time you feel the urge to react, pause and ask yourself one question. What is this reaction buying me? If the answer is momentary relief but long-term chaos, let it go. Power is not loud, control is not dramatic, and strength is not proven through emotional exhaustion. The smartest response to toxicity is not retaliation, it's restraint. And the moment you stop reacting, you stop being controlled. Once smart people realize that reacting only feeds toxicity, the next shift is even more powerful and far more misunderstood. They stop trying to win the interaction and start redesigning access. This is where most people expect fireworks, a confrontation, a final speech, a dramatic exit that finally makes the other person understand. But smart people don't do that, not because they lack courage, but because they understand leverage. Drama gives toxic people exactly what they want: significance. It places them at the center of the story. Smart people refuse to grant that role. Instead of cutting people off in a blaze of emotion, they quietly reduce exposure. Fewer conversations, slower replies, less personal information. This isn't passive aggression, it's boundary enforcement without spectacle. Smart people understand that access is earned, not owed, and when someone repeatedly misuses access, the correct response is not explanation, it's limitation. This approach requires something rare: comfort with silence. Many people keep engaging because silence feels like loss, like weakness, like unfinished business. Smart people know better. They recognize that closure is often a fantasy sold to emotionally exhausted people. Not every relationship ends with mutual understanding. Some end with distance, and that distance is the closure. Psychologically, this works because behavior is shaped by consequence, not conversation. Toxic people often hear boundaries as challenges. The more you explain, the more they negotiate. The more you justify, the more they argue. Smart people bypass the entire cycle by letting behavior speak for itself. When access decreases, the message is clear without being spoken. And here's the truth most people avoid. You don't need someone's agreement to change your availability. You don't need permission to protect your time, your energy, or your peace. Smart people understand that boundaries are not requests. They are decisions. Quiet decisions, consistently applied. Notice how this changes the power dynamic. When you announce a boundary, a toxic person often prepares to attack it. When you simply enforce one, there's nothing to debate. The conversation doesn't escalate because there is no conversation. The energy drain stops because the outlet has been removed. This is also where smart people stop oversharing. They become selective with their vulnerability. Not everyone deserves your inner world. Not everyone needs an explanation for your choices. Toxic people often weaponize information, your doubts, your fears, your values. Smart people learn that privacy is not secrecy, it's protection. There's a philosophical clarity behind this behavior. Smart people understand that proximity amplifies influence. The closer someone is to you, the more they shape how you think, feel, and act. Reducing access isn't punishment, it's a recognition of impact. If someone consistently disrupts your clarity, their proximity becomes a liability. And yes, this can feel uncomfortable at first. Guilt often shows up. You may wonder if you're being cold or unfair. Smart people don't ignore that feeling, but they don't let it override reality. They distinguish between guilt and responsibility. You are not responsible for managing someone else's emotions at the cost of your own well-being. What's interesting is how toxic people respond when access is reduced. Some will escalate, trying to provoke a reaction. Others will play the victim. Some will suddenly become kind. Smart people don't mistake these shifts for change. They watch for consistency, not intensity. Real change is quiet, sustained, and accountable. Anything else is strategy. Reducing access also teaches you something critical about yourself. You start to notice how much energy you were spending managing someone else's instability. You realize how much mental space opens up when you stop anticipating conflict. Peace doesn't arrive as excitement, it arrives as relief. And that relief is data. It tells you you're moving in the right direction. Smart people don't need to explain why they're harder to reach. They don't apologize for being less available to those who repeatedly cross lines. They let their life reorganize itself around what supports growth rather than drains it. Over time, the people who respect boundaries stay, the people who don't remove themselves. And this is the final insight. Reducing access isn't about shutting people out, it's about choosing who gets in. Your time is finite. Your attention is limited. Your energy is non-renewable in the short term. Smart people treat these resources like assets, not obligations. So if someone shows you, consistently, that they don't respect your limits, don't debate it. Don't dramatize it. Adjust access and move forward, because the strongest boundaries are not spoken, they're lived. After reducing access and reclaiming control of their time and energy, smart people reach a deeper realization, one that quietly changes how they see everyone around them. They stop trying to fix toxic people, not out of bitterness,